Hi, everybody. This is Brian Mahoney, the CEO of Trend Research and the president of the 50,000 plus member OTT executive community. We're continuing in our podcast series where we interview leaders of the industry. Today, we're joined by Katherine Pond. Katherine, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me, Brian.
Oh, we're thrilled. We got a lot to talk about, so we're going to jump right into it. So first of all, Katherine, you're the group vice president. What your title and responsibility right now?
Right. So, Group Vice President of Platform Content and Partnerships here at Vizio. And that really means that I'm fortunate to look after all things content related on the platform. That includes all of our distribution deals with third-party applications on the platform like Netflix, Amazon, Hulu. It also includes oversight of our Watch Free Plus owned and operated service. And it also includes on-platform marketing and a few other things. But I'm very fortunate to get to work in this evolving entertainment industry as a part of my role.
Yeah, and how long have you been at that job? I know we bump into each other at all the industry shows. I'm like, hey, Katherine, what's going on? And it's been years, right?
Would you believe I've been at Vizio 11 years in December?
Wow. Wow.
Almost unheard of, except for at the networks, I feel like.
Yeah, that especially in this industry. Well, congratulations. That's quite a tenure. Good for you.
Thank you. It's been amazing, honestly. I frequently have conversations about why 11 years, why Vizio. And the reality for me is this is one of those places where if you say yes, you get so much opportunity. And I've been fortunate to have the chance to look at so many different areas of our business and work on so many different areas, whether that was Inscape data licensing when we very first launched that business. I actually oversaw our programmatic advertising business when we first launched it. So again, it's been a fun run, and being able to get to do all of those different things in one organization, I feel like is a rare thing, and feel very fortunate for that.
Well, that's great. I started Trend Research in 2007, then kind of relaunched in 2014, right around that time. So we're kindred spirits in the industry. We've been sort of, crossing paths many for a long time now. Plug for Vizio. I think my first 720p HD TV is a Vizio.
Like,
Um, it's
I
still in the
love that.
basement, still works, hooked up to the Xbox. The kids are down there and they play video games and watch movies and stuff. So still, yeah, still working, still going strong.
Absolutely, I love that. We really do make good hardware. We're a complete entertainment company now. So we've got the hardware, we have all of the data flowing through it, we have the software that we build, we have all of the content for entertainment. But at our core, we started as a hardware
Mhm.
company, and so it's something that we do, and incredibly well. So love hearing that you've got one. Thanks for the support.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think about it, and it's like, it's amazing these days with appliances and electronics. We turn over our iPhones every year or two, right?
Yeah.
And we have this device like a refrigerator. It just works and it's been there for, I don't know, 10 plus years. I don't know, maybe 15. I don't remember. Long time. Anyhow, let's start with your career a little bit. Take us through, before Vizio, your career, your background, kind of how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so when I very first left school, I started in technology, but on the hardware side, it was in computer memory. And I worked first kind of in the sales department, and then I moved into program management and asset management. I learned a ton. I learned a ton. And, that was really, I think, where my operational roots started. I worked directly in our operations department, and that was where it was all about optimizing processes and really figuring out how do you get the most, either the most out of the money, the most out of the product, the most out of the team. And I had a really good operational manager there that I learned a lot from. And that is still kind of core to who I
Mhm.
am. Everywhere I go, it doesn't matter if I'm in line at Starbucks, I'm looking for operational efficiency. And my team knows that about me as well, because I think it's in my blood now
Mhm.
at this point. And from there, I went to a very, very small startup company. At one point, we were just 3 employees, and that also turned me into who I am today, because that was where I got the most depth and breadth of experience. And
Mhm.
I love bringing people in who have worked at startups, because they get that mentality of just pick it up and figure it out. I was everything there, from running the books at one point in accounting and finance, to managing all of our purchase orders, to actually overseeing an assembly line, a production assembly line.
There's the
And
operational angle, right?
yeah, oh, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. But the thing that happened in that job that got me to where I am today was actually the purchasing that I was doing. Because what I was doing was buying the components for the product that we were making, and I was buying them from international suppliers. If you're buying something, you've got to be able to negotiate pricing, terms, and conditions. Mm-hmm. And so when I was ready to move on and I started looking for new jobs, I'm like, where else can I put that skill set to use? That operational piece. I love relationships. Mm-hmm. I was forming relationships with the suppliers, really kind of creating this opportunity for the business. And what I found was that was a natural fit for business development. And so from there, I went to Acer. Acer is the computer brand. And yep. At the time that I was there, it was Acer, Gateway, eMachines, and Packard Bell. Mm-hmm. I joined their Global Strategic Alliances department as a program manager, which was really business development. And what we did there, and this is where it really skyrocketed into the technology and entertainment piece that I'm in now, is we were actually installing desktop icons on your computer. You know, all those desktop icons that you probably hate if you're still buying PCs today. There are relationships and economics behind those. There's a reason that those are there.
Yeah.
And so we started doing that. And this was right when Netflix was really entering the digital world as opposed to just the physical disc world. And so I had the opportunity to work on those deals, look at those deals. And after a period of time, and I was able to move up there as well. I have to give credit to my manager. I learned so much from him. He was incredible. He was the one that looked at me and said, you know what? I think I can teach you this. And he really did. Incredible lawyer there too, who leaned in with me and worked on contracting. And that's how I was able to leverage that experience to come work at Vizio. And really where I started here was as a senior manager of business development, managing relationships like Netflix, Amazon, and Hulu.
How cool.
As that world was really first starting for us in the smart connected TV space 11 years ago. So that's kind of my trajectory from where did you start and how did you end up at Vizio 11 years ago? And it was finding those things that I loved and really fit my skill set, but then allowed me to continue to expand, what I was working on.
Yeah, that is so cool. And you've really seen all the inflection points in the industry over the last 11 years. Must have been a lot of fun. How much has Vizio grown, just size of the company in that period of time? Any idea?
Yeah, so we were at about, I used to say 250 employees, including customer service when I started here. I had that memorized as part of our spiel. And we're now over 1,000 employees, between contractors, full-time employees, managing the business, growing the business. And yeah, it's been an incredible ride. I think you'll love this story, which is at my 10-year anniversary at Vizio last December, I went back and, because gotta love technology, I checked my email for my thank you for the Vizio interview email. And I found that very original email where it was like, I love this job. I'd love to be able to work there. And in that email, what I had said was, I believe that entertainment and applications are the future of connected TV. And I'm so excited that this is an area Vizio wants to grow in. And that to me is just how incredible to be able to.
Wow, you were prophetic. That's exactly right. True.
So if I was prophetic, I was just so excited about, this is something Vizio has to do to be relevant for TV. And, I had a great boss who hired me here as well back then and absolutely believed in what we were doing as far as entertainment and, applications on TVs. So.
Yeah, and I want to get into, now the platform isn't just check off box on distribution. The platform, your platform and others, the connected TV is the platform, is the portal for like this myriad of content. Before we get ahead of ourselves, let's just tell me about your current role right now. What are your responsibilities?
Yeah, so where I am now is group vice president, and that includes looking after, it's basically 5 to 6 different business verticals, any way you kind of want to think of it. One of those business verticals is everything for WatchFree+. WatchFree+ is our owned and operated service. It includes both over 275 fast channels, with 40 more local channels, as well as over 15,000 on-demand assets. Cool fact, we launched it about 4 years ago. It's now the second most watched free ad-supported application on our entire platform.
Wow.
And
Congrats.
that's been fun. I know we'll probably dive into that and talk more about that, but that's all of the acquisition,
Okay.
programming, because we have O&O channels there as well, all of the content operations, partnerships. So that all sits in our Watch Free Plus vertical. We also have a strategic partnerships vertical, which is focused on our biggest and most critical relationships with third-party app partners. And those are not just sign a deal and move on type of partnerships, not that any of ours are, but really with those guys, it's so critical that we figure out how their technology and our technology are going to work together to make the best experience on the platform for consumers. Then I have business development and partnerships, and that is focused on outside of those top kind of 10, 15 strategic applications on the platform. We actually have over 200 other applications on the platform, and that team manages everything else, including the technical account management for onboarding.
Okay.
So we've got a lot of activity going on there, and I always say Vizio is really focused on relationships, honestly. And so we have a partnership management team in that vertical as well, who goes out and meets monthly, quarterly with our partners. We're not just going to put you on the platform and forget about you.
Right.
We want you to grow the content. We want our partners to grow. And then I also have platform content and marketing, which is all of our on and off device promotion, including home screen engagement related to content. It's a really fun and impactful vertical that makes a massive, massive impact on what consumers decide to watch every day. And then the last hat that I wear is actually one that doesn't largely impact any of the others, except for the fact that it impacts our roadmap. And so in that vertical, I run our enterprise program management team, which is responsible for any initiatives that involve essentially more than product and engineering. So
it's a lot, many hats.
It's so fun. It's so fun. And that's why, again, you know, after 11 years starting out in business development and then being able to pick up additional things, learn new things, and really have the opportunity, but also be able to help the organization as we continue to grow.
Yeah. Very cool. So you're never bored. Let's jump right into it then. I think some of the questions I have, and this sort of ties into Vizio's role in the industry. And the perception is that a few years ago, it was a lot easier to get on a platform, right? It was sort of a target-rich environment. You mentioned you have 200 apps-ish, right?
Yep.
How has that changed? Like, what is your process for evaluating a new content partner to put them on the platform, for instance?
Yeah, so if we're talking about third-party applications and that evaluation, it's absolutely, we are still working with those content partners to evaluate their content offering, to make sure that there's a library, to look at all the different aspects of the technology, make sure it's a well-built application.
Yep.
It has to, comply with all of our normal technical specifications and those type of things. What we're doing is we're evaluating all of these different applications that want to join the platform, and then we are bringing the vast majority of them onto the platform. It's pretty rare that someone approaches us and says, hey, I want to develop an app for the Vizio platform, and then they don't move forward. The economics certainly play into that as well. We have to have economics that make sense. Vizio's built a massive advertising business in addition to thinking about subscription and transactional revenue. Right. So that's kind of on the third-party application side. When it comes to joining our Watch Free Plus service, our Watch Free Plus service has a really, really in-depth vetting that goes along with launching a channel. And I'm sure you've seen this in the other people you've been talking with, Brian, that in the fast space, what originally happened years ago was this idea you could create a YouTube playlist and someone would launch it as a fast channel. But
right. Build it and they will come, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. But that's not the reality anymore. This is the fast environment is now premium content. It's not just library content. It's premium content and deep catalogs of hours and hours of content that's being programmed in a really, really thoughtful way. And so we actually look at more than 20 different data points. We forecast revenue against these channels. We look at whether or not these channels might cannibalize an existing successful channel.
Okay.
And then we evaluate whether or not we're actually going to launch the channel. We look at which category is it going into? What is our depth in that category? Do we already have enough here? And one of the things that I think is missed, honestly, is there is still white space. You hear that there are thousands and thousands of fast channels. I am still getting pitched. My team is still getting pitched on things that don't exist yet, channels that don't exist yet, whether it's single IP channels, whether it's genre channels. And that continues to keep me excited because the environment is constantly evolving.
Mm-hmm. But I guess, yeah, so that makes sense. But would you agree with that statement? There is more vetting. The filter is a little bit tougher in terms of you're not just going to take any content, pop a tile up on your platform, right?
No, no, absolutely.
Okay.
It's about the partnership. There's more vetting, quality of content. It's
Yep.
a higher bar than it used to be.
Okay. That's fair. But it's interesting that you say there's still plenty of white space. So can you give me an example of where there might be some new genre or something you're like, wow, this fills a void. This targets a demographic where you're not really kind of serving right now.
I absolutely. I had a conversation about one of these in particular yesterday. Let's think about YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Tons of user generated content, and it's quality user generated
Mm-hmm.
content. We can't bring all of that into the fasted environment. And in fact, that's not even the form factor that many of those viewers are going to be looking for.
Right.
But and while many of those creators have gone out and created single IP channels, think Mr. Beast, for
Yes.
example, those are not necessarily going to scale in the same way. You have to find a very specific audience. And so I think there's a space to create a channel that pulls together different content creators under a genre banner, and they can bring their audience to the platform. That's just one example of something that I haven't really seen done
Okay.
and that I think is particularly interesting. Think about fine arts, not something that we've seen a ton of in the
Good
space.
point.
That could
Yeah.
be, yeah, it could
Mm-hmm.
be, musical productions, it could be dance productions, it could be
Museum tours.
anything along
Yeah.
those lines.
Yep.
And that is a massive audience here in the United States that would love the opportunity to look at that. Other things, white space, doesn't mean the content doesn't exist. It means it hasn't made it over into this environment.
Yep.
Live concerts, but not live concerts live in the moment, taking live concerts and bringing them into the fast environment. I don't know if I'm a big music person. I know we can talk about hobbies all day probably, but I love to attend concerts, but I also love to watch them at home because Vizio has amazing TVs, amazing sound bars to listen to these experiences. And again, I could go on, but there really is white space and there are
Okay.
audiences for these things.
So
And
it's targeted. There's a vetting process. There's definitely opportunities out there. But what would you say to the folks that say that the fast market in particular is oversaturated? That consumers have too many options now. Content discovery is a huge challenge. It hasn't been fixed. Everybody says AI is tomorrow. We're going to flick a switch and then it's going to be perfectly curated and stuff. And we know that's not necessarily the case. What would you say to that? Is that true? And what is your role as a platform to kind of curate and provide an experience where customers can get to the content they want, maybe explore new stuff? I don't know. What is your answer to that challenge?
such a question with so many different facets. So
Yeah.
first, is the fast market saturated? Um, Again, I think there's white space, but there are areas where it is saturated.
Okay.
I get the Vizio team gets 5-10 pitches on crime fast channels every week, it feels
Mm-hmm.
like. Hugely successful genre here in the United States, which is where Vizio is based. Hugely successful, but saturated. And
Yep.
so if we take that idea of it being saturated, we already talked about the fact that there's a higher bar for the quality of content, but let's talk about the fact that the reality is not everybody is going to make money. And there are channels that are hugely successful. And that's really where we spend our time. Vizio actually has a process where we go through every quarter and we look at the bottom 25% of our channels. And we either decide, are we going to keep those channels? Are we going to replace those channels with a competitor? Or are we going to invest in them together with the partner to figure
Mm-hmm.
out how to grow an audience? So in a saturated market, if you're a content partner that's looking to get into the fast environment, got to look for a partner who's gonna make sure that your channel's performing, and you as a content partner also have to be willing to make that investment. And I think there are so many other aspects of that we can kind of go into from a
Yeah.
saturation standpoint. But not everyone will be successful. That's
Okay.
true.
So it's got to be unique. It's got to be interesting. Let's take me through. Okay, so you have a vetting process, and we talked about that. Take me through what a good deal looks like, right? Let's say I came to you and I said, "Look, I've got this new. Let's take museums. I got all this great content, tours all the great museums of the world, or whatever. I want to I want to create an app and put it on Vizio, or I want to be part of your library. What would that deal look like? What's a good deal for both partners?
I mean, I'll go at it philosophically first,
Sure.
and then
Okay.
without getting too much into all of the deal specifics.
You
But
don't have to give any trade industry, trade secrets in terms
yeah,
of
let me tell
economics.
you all of the secrets of how to negotiate the deal, Brian. So what I
Listen
would
up, viewers.
um, philosophically, I believe that when you sit down to negotiate a deal, if either side walks away feeling like they've lost, it's a bad deal.
Okay.
I don't like those deals, and here's why. If let's say we negotiate a deal and Vizio walks away going, wow, we didn't get the inventory that we wanted in this deal, whether it's the inventory split or, maybe it's on even let's say on an SVOD or a TVOD deal, we do the deal, we walk away not feeling like it makes the most sense for us. There is a downstream effect. The downstream effect is you may not see the same amount of home screen promotion as the deals where Vizio is able to get what we need to get out of it. I mentioned before, we have a massive advertising business here at Vizio. Mike O'Donnell, who's our Chief Revenue and Growth Strategy Officer, my boss, has done a phenomenal job building that together with Adam Bergman and Travis Hawkersmith. Great guys. And what that means for us is we have to find a way to get the right content in front of the consumer at the right moment. And that means if the deal economics don't line up, that downstream effect is you may not see home screen promotion. So if both sides come, or as much home screen promotion. So if you come to the table and we agree on a deal that both sides are happy with, that's the win. Okay. And, some of the things that I think candidly, I might be a little bit more open with than maybe some of the others in the market, which is okay. I think there's an opportunity to make money on the inventory that wasn't sold the first time around. Okay. So for those that follow along in, the ad side of things, if there's an ad opportunity, it comes in, neither side fills out. How do we make sure that we don't have unused inventory? That can look like a backfill deal. You'd be surprised how many partners out there aren't even aware that that's an option. And, so it is. And you may not get it with every platform. You may not get it with Vizio, but those are the types of things. If we're all making more money and the consumer has a better experience because they have a full ad pod, session duration is just going to go up.
Okay. So what are some of the levers then that would be part of the deal? You don't have to tell me, like you mentioned inventory split. Like what are the other sort of key things that typically get negotiated as part of a deal?
We have plenty without going too much into the specifics.
Yeah, the high level.
Yeah, sure. The people are always asking for placement. That doesn't mean it gets done in a deal. There are plenty of deals where a vast majority of those premium placements on platform are paid for as a part of those deals.
Yep, so, no surprise there.
Yeah, of course. So I would say marketing, technical integration. We like to be able to form deep strategic partnerships. And then from there, I would say it's really about how do we grow the relationship and what does that look like across all of the deal levers?
Okay, that's fair. And so just switching gears just a little bit, you're managing, you're not only curating content, you're sort of curating the overall user viewer experience for folks that are using your platform. Let's talk about that a little bit. As you know, we're working on our second annual OTT/streaming user experience survey. It's going great. I encourage people to go to the website, and it only takes 10 minutes. Fill that out. It'd be great. What are the considerations there to manage? I wouldn't call it clutter, but all this content, and provide a good experience on your platform for your viewers. Any thoughts there? Any kind of best practices you can share?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we think about our home screen, there are what I will call three key buckets. One, paid placement, and that's absolutely happening. Vizio is a publicly traded company. You can see it's a big part of our business. It's important. Those are the major movie releases, new originals, like an Apple original that you might see. And then in the second bucket, you're talking about things that are either machine learning or AI based. So we have all kinds of algorithms, as do all of the platforms that are running in the background to understand when something's being watched, what genres Brian is most interested in, though not Brian, completely anonymous and privacy compliant, right? But we use our Inscape data to do that too. I don't know how familiar you are with that aspect of our business, but it's automatic content recognition. So it's collecting second by second viewing data of linear TV viewing and other viewing.
Okay.
But that means we're able to pull all of that data into these algorithms to inform what a specific device is engaging with in order to surface the most relevant content. And, you said something earlier that really resonated with me, which was, it's not going to be a click of the button and AI is going to solve the discovery problem. And that's true. And that's why that third bucket to me is really important. And that's our editorial bucket.
Mm-hmm.
That is our team under our VP of Platform and Content Marketing, Liz, that team is going in and looking at all of this content and saying, what is interesting? What is new? How can we curate it and program it in a way that it doesn't feel like clutter? And she and the team actually have done some pretty cool executions for that. So we got some exclusive content from Fox for Lego Masters. And rather than just seeing promotion of like box art or, the stars of the show, we actually had floating Lego bricks on the screen that gave you this idea of, this is something new. This is something different. For Halloween, we had these really cool, fun tombstones that people could come engage with. So we're looking at how do you take the content and not just make it while big faces, big names are certainly going to draw engagement. We also want to find fun other ways for consumers to engage with the platform and find what they're looking for. So I think, we recently redesigned our operating system. We released that in July. You said, how do you minimize the clutter? That's one of the things we did in the redesign. We moved the navigation over to the left-hand side. We created a more immersive experience with these full bleed hero images on the home screen. And so we've really been thoughtful about creating an experience that's immersive and intuitive and personalized for consumers.
Okay. And what are the metrics, Katherine, that you kind of track to measure that your viewers are having a good sort of overall experience? Is it hours watched? Is it, titles started? I don't know. Like, what are the key metrics in your mind?
Yeah. So from a home screen perspective, the first thing we start with is how many users are coming to the home screen. Okay. And SmartCast viewership is well up over 50%. And it's continuing to eat into that linear viewing. And so total time spent on the device, vast majority is happening in SmartCast. So that's the first place we start, kind of in the funnel. And then from there, it's how much time are users spending on the home screen? And there are kind of two schools of thought there, I would say. One, help them find something quickly. Mm-hmm. You don't want, we've all had the problem. We scroll, you roll your, yeah.
I'm just thinking tonight, like we're probably going to watch a movie and we'll spend half an hour debating.
Spend 20 minutes looking for it, right?
Yeah.
And that's our job. Right. Our job is to help solve that problem. But we also want you to enjoy that experience. When you're scrolling through and finding something, can we make that an enjoyable experience? So we look at the time that's spent on the home screen. We're looking at the click-through rate, which creatives perform best, creative best practices. I can just say, single titles work really, really well. Big faces, not so many details, not so many words, mm-hmm. Those types of things that are engaging for consumers. So we look at click-through rate. From click-through rate, if it's something that consumers have the option to pick from multiple services, we're looking at which service did they select, mm-hmm. What percentage of time did they select that service versus another service, so that we can bring the most prominent service back onto the home screen so that it's fewer clicks for them next time. Yep. So there are a whole bunch of different data points. Obviously, total time spent within all the different applications on the platform, all of the app launches. I mean, there's a myriad data points that we're able to use, and we're getting smarter every day. This is really something our team has been focused on. And, you can hear it. I'm a bit proud of that team and the work that they've done there to really grow engagement, and engagement with our owned and operated service as a part of that Watch Free Plus as well.
Yeah. And you should be too. So how about the endpoint devices, like using the little remote control? It's hard to kind of peck your titles in there. How is voice doing, search and navigation? Is that the primary means to access content?
Voice continues to grow as a means to engage. We have Vizio Voice, which is powered by SoundHound. Honestly, one of the best NLU services when it comes to voice. A Vizio query does not have to be show me a James Bond movie. It's show me a James Bond movie with Pierce Brosnan And you could even tell it, that was created in the last 20 years. And that query can pull something up for you because our voice architecture is that sophisticated.
Wow.
I think that helps with adoption. The other thing that is helping us with adoption is we have a Vizio mobile application. And so even if you originally purchased your Vizio TV and you didn't have a voice-enabled remote, this is one of the cool things that we do is when we push out those updates, we go as far back as we possibly can to make the new feature available to as many consumers as possible. And so you can download the Vizio mobile application instead. And for a large majority of our devices, they're also still voice-enabled because they got that update. And then you just use the microphone button right there on your mobile device within Vizio Mobile to launch that content. Like, we're creating more access points for voice, which I think helps with adoption and engagement as well.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the future. I mean, folks are already multitasking. They're on social. They already have their phones in their hand. It makes total sense to use that, for input, navigation, everything. Let's go upstream just a little bit, just talk about the major trends in the industry right now. It's been a bit of a challenging year at the writer's strike, with, kind of waking up to the fact that maybe we overinvested a little bit in content and we got to look at, profitability. We got M&A activity happening and being anticipated into next year. Where is the industry going to be a year from now? If we're having this conversation again, what changes would have happened to either in terms of consumer behavior or, the industry, becoming healthier and growing as an industry?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest trends that I'm seeing right now is additional adoption by networks of fast channels. So you had Zumo, who's now part of Comcast, NBCU, early days. You had Pluto, who's now part of Viacom, CBS, early days. Those guys were the early movers, early adopters. And then you kind of had A&E. They get tons of credit for being one of the first movers in the fast space. You've got AMC, but there's still networks that really haven't launched a ton of fast channels or major conglomerates, right? If you think about Disney, ABC, they've got a couple of things out there on third-party services, but it's really news. It's not anything else. And what I'm seeing is those companies, it's the same trend, honestly, Brian, that you saw when Netflix said, oh, by the way, we're going to add ads. When you saw everyone else, Prime Video announces ads, right? We're going to add ads. So those types of trends, in the same way, the networks are coming in and saying, hey, this fast thing is here to stay. We need to figure out how to engage there. And what that means for the consumers, which is exciting, is more choice, more premium content, more things to watch for free. And I will say there's something from a consumer trend that I've seen, and I think sometimes is misunderstood, which is we always call it a free service. It is a free service to the consumer, but they're paying with something really valuable, which is their time. And we have to figure out the best way to give them the best value for their time. That means good ad experience, great content, all of those pieces together. And so if we go back to that industry trend piece of it, it's now that those networks are moving into this space more, are they doing it just to make up where they might be losing subs on, on the linear side? Not necessarily. This is a viable supplementary model, and consumers are engaging in multiple ways. They're still engaging with a linear channel and a fast channel. So it's not a zero-sum game.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, some of the walled gardens have kind of broken down a little bit, this idea of exclusivity and trying to control your content and sort of control distribution. I think a lot of the major players have said, you know what, if we can get eyeballs over here for this content and, it's okay, right? There's multiple ways for consumers to find the content they want. You want to make that easy and you can, make extra money that way. Why not do that, right?
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I think they're opening those gates a little bit more or tearing down the walls a little bit more, so to speak. And it almost goes back to that old school philosophy that still exists in the industry of windowing, right? What is the fast window? When does that make sense for us? And what can we do? And we're seeing the networks really start to employ that.
Yeah. Well, cool. Listen, this is a great conversation. We could go on for hours about any of these topics. I find it very fascinating. I think next year is going to be a good year for the industry. We're doing the right things. Some of the services and the apps are raising prices. They're kind of managing content in a weird sort of way. The investments that were going to happen this year have helped with profitability. So that gives new life. We've had some great announcements recently from, Netflix and their growth and stuff. So see some good things coming into 2024. I'd love to, one of the things we like to do in this podcast is sort of personalize some of the luminaries in the industry like yourself, Katherine. Is there a hobby or an interest you can share with our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a fitness fanatic. I found fitness, I would say, through group exercise when I kind of right around the time I started at Vizio. I'm still a up at the crack of dawn workout person. I love
Wow, good for you.
I love spin class. We call it dancing on a bike, kind of like Soul Cycle. I'm a weightlifter. And then, I mean, the two other personal parts of me that are a huge part of who I am as a leader, I would say, is, I'm really involved in church. And then I've got two little boys at home and a husband of almost 19 years. My two little guys are 2.5 and 5.
Oh, what fun. Oh, I remember those days.
So I'm
Treasure
in the
those
thick
days.
of it.
As they say, the days are long, but the years are short. I have my kids are in high school and college now, and it just goes by so quickly.
It does. It does. So yeah, plenty of things that when I have free time, I enjoy and get to do, whether that's with my family or, for myself at the gym. So
That's great. It's funny, the pandemic, what do they say? You either came out of that as a hunk, a drunk, or a chunk, depending on, what choices you made. And it's funny because when we were under lockdown or whatever, my
yeah,
boys dusted off our old weight bench and we got into
good.
working out and as a sort of a family. And that's mostly stuck. Like we're kind of continuing in that years later. So it's
Good for you. That's awesome.
yeah, I mean, I'm not the early bird getting up like you and before work and doing all that stuff, but yeah, it's fitness is important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of
Absolutely.
spills over into mental and psychological fitness as well too. So
Gets me ready for the day. Gets that brain going.
yes, 100%. Well, listen, Katherine, it's been a pleasure. Really appreciate your insights. I think a lot of folks, our audience, is going to tune into this, be like, wow, this is really interesting. Your insights about the sort of composition of a deal, right, and what makes a good deal, good user experience. Those are all fantastic insights. Really appreciate your time today, Katherine.
Thank you so much for having me, Brian. Really enjoyed it.
So once again, this is Brian Mahoney from OTT Executive Podcast. We've been joined by Katherine Pond from Vizio. Signing off, everybody. Have a great day.